Hello and happy St. Patrick's Day. This is Michelle from eStaff Art, and today I have this really easy, beginner-friendly St. Patrick's Day illustration. And I'm going to start with a really light sketch on my Arches watercolor paper. And the way I draw shamrocks, it's just kind of three intersecting blobby hearts. So those are pretty easy shapes to make, and then a stem coming off the side. I lift up a little bit of the graphite with my rubber eraser. I don't like it to really show through super clearly. That's kind of just a personal preference though. I also like to activate my paints with a little spray bottle so that they're ready to start mixing up. And of course, I'm really going to be focusing on mixing up various greens in preparation to hit the page. So I got a really lovely deep green, I think, and where I will start is actually getting a little bit of clean water and just filling in my illustration with clean water to start. And this is, I think, a really good way to learn, if you're new to watercolor, how the paint interacts with water, how much water to use. I try to just get a very light sheen when I'm doing what's called wet into wet. And that way the water doesn't puddle, and I can kind of just drop in some color and see where the color goes. And I think that's kind of just the fun play part of watercolor as well. So you can see I'm going around the edges of my shamrock illustration and just dropping in some paint and seeing where it goes and seeing what effect I kind of want. I was thinking I sort of wanted the center of the petals and the center of the shamrock to be a little bit lighter. So that's why I took this approach rather than just like dropping it in the middle. I went around the edges. And then I just went right into my pan with that olive color and started on the stem. And I'm going to link the stem in to where you can kind of see it kind of links in with the rest of the petals. And you know, I'm going to go in again a little bit more with that olive, a more dark green, and go back around where I started. And also where the little heart is on the shamrocks, I like the dark color to kind of come in a little bit on each of those petals as well. So I'm just layering and adding color and really just like in the moment, seeing what I like and dropping in more color in areas where I like. Sometimes I pick up the colors. I clean up my brush with just clean water, and I kind of dry it off a little bit because you really just want it to be damp. And I'll pull up a little bit of color at different points. So I think this is just really a super fun way to get a sense of how the paint and the watercolor move together. So at this point, you know, the water is starting to dry a little bit. And one thing I really didn't want was harsh lines, which is what you would get if you add paint when the, you know, previous layer is dry. You're going to get sort of some harsh lines. So you can see I'm kind of just scrubbing a little bit around to blend out the color, because I felt like it wasn't, it was just a little bit too stark of a contrast between the outside lines of the shamrock and the interior. So I'm just kind of try to clean off my brush with water, and I'll typically dry it a little bit on the towel and then scrub around. And once I'm happy with that, I'm going to go in and write a little bit of a saying here. I decided to go with like shake your shamrocks. It seems pretty lighthearted given that it's St. Patrick's Day. So I always go in with pencil first. I'm not that great at hand lettering to just go right in with ink. So I just put down some pencil first and go from there. So I'm by no means an expert when it comes to hand lettering. but I just kind of know what I like. And one effect that I like is to use different fonts. So my first half of my phrase, I did it in print, and then I decided to do some cursive / faux calligraphy for the shamrocks, and I thought that would leave a pretty effect. So at this point, I can go over my pencil writing with a fine liner. I think this is a 0.6 nib from Craftamo. And, I really like it because you can kind of make some corrections to the pencil writing underneath as you go. And I just think it's like kind of a really helpful thing to do is to put down the pencil first, because you can always change it, but you can't change pen, right? And at this point, I'm trying to achieve a bit of faux calligraphy by thickening any of what's called the downstroke. So when you're writing, the pen comes towards you, that's viewed as a downstroke. And that's how you achieve the faux calligraphy effect. And I'm also going to take a graphic liner and go over Shake Your, the first, the printed part at the top. I just kind of wanted to have a little bit more weight to those letters just to kind of make it stand out more. Once I identify the letters that I'm going to thicken, or like the downstrokes that I'm going to thicken, I like to save my pens a little bit if I can, and I just go over it with a paintbrush and some black paint to fill in those areas where I'm achieving the calligraphy look by thickening those downstrokes. So I wanted to add a little bit of pizzazz to my illustration. So I grabbed my metallic watercolors, and again, I'm going to activate those with water just like regular. And I'm loading up my brush with a lot of that gold paint, and I'm just going to tap my hand on the brush to get a little bit of splatter. And I think that's kind of a little bit festive and fun. And the other thing that I'm going to do is grab a flat brush and use that to create a border of this gold on all four sides of my illustration. And so I like to make sure that I move the illustration around so that I get the angle that I'm most comfortable with. And I do really think that this flat brush is helping me to get somewhat straight lines. I mean, you don't really want it to be exactly straight, because then it kind of loses its handmade illustrative quality. But you kind of just want it to have like an approximately straight look. And I don't think my round brush would have serviced me quite as well as this flat brush did. And so as I keep going around, you can see I'm kind of trying to be careful with the placement of my fingers, because I don't want to smudge any of the splatter that I already put down. I think if I had this to do over again, I would have reversed these steps. I would have put down the border. That way I could have just kind of been able to touch this paper unencumbered, and then I would have done the splatter afterwards. And actually at this point I added a little bit more splatter just for the fun of it. And there you go. There's my finished product. I hope you try this. I think it's really helpful if you're beginning to do anything that's going to help you to learn how the water and the paint interact. So hopefully you learned something. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And thanks for watching. Hit the like and subscribe if you'd like to see more from this channel.